I am an inspirational speaker, but I will let you into a little secret. I don't like inspiration, okay? And I'll tell you for why. Inspiration is one of those compliments always paid to people. Inspirational, if I take you back to your school science lessons just for a second, okay, it's that nice breathing, that nice butterfly feeling in your stomach, that great potential energy that then dissipates and doesn't go anywhere. So my aim for this evening is not just to inspire you, it is to motivate you as well to take action, because as you'll see maybe from my brief story, if we don't change anything, nothing will change. So hopefully I'm going to give you a couple of practical points that you can take away this evening and actually action that hopefully inspiring feeling that I give you. So moving on to tell you a little bit about myself. I had a pretty normal upbringing. I grew up in South East London, and I think I was very lucky to have a good education and get a lot of opportunities growing up. My big passion growing up was sport, okay? I believe we should all have a passion. I believe we should all have something that lights a fire inside us. It absolutely does not have to be sport. So I'd urge you to view this talk or listen to this talk through the prism of whatever your passion is, because for every person that runs towards sport, there's absolutely another running away from it. But for me, it was my passion. That doesn't necessarily mean I was any good at it, it just means I enjoyed it. And I always liked my team sports. I was fascinated by the idea of teams, the structure of teams, the fact that when we come together and work as a unit, we can be so much more than the sum of our parts. Now I know that's a cliche, but it does ring true. While there are successful individuals, there's no such thing as individual success. We all need people to help us along the way. Unfortunately for me, with sports, I always had a penchant for the dumb jobs. So in football, I was in goal. In cricket, I was behind the wicket. And in rugby, I played in the front row. So at the age of 17, that came back to bite me. I had a catastrophic injury in a game of rugby. I sustained a spinal cord injury that left me paralysed from the chest down, with limited use of my hands and my arms, and having to use a chair to get around for the rest of my life. For the purposes of this talk, I'm not going to take it any darker than that. Whether you like it or not, this is the Christmas special, so that's what I'm running with. It's not that I don't like to talk about it, it's just that I want to talk to you about things that happened subsequently. So obviously it was a big, big life change for me. Lots of things I had to get used to doing all over again. But I did see the positives, and I believe that there are positives in every single scenario. Okay, that might have been one of the hardest times of my life, but make no mistake, you have all had hard times in your lives. You have all had a worst day of your life, and you all have a 100% record of coming through and out the other side of that hardest day. So for me, I prefer to see the positives, and one of the main ones was all these other sports existed. You know, sport didn't end just because you happened to be in a chair. And I looked around for a lot of different sports, but the one that caught my eye was wheelchair rugby. Back to the dumb jobs again, maybe. If you've never seen wheelchair rugby, this is it. Oh, you got any sound? Don't worry. Okay, so we are very proud. One of the things, actually, for the purposes tonight, one of the things we're most proud of, as you may have seen my colleague Kylie in the background there, because the classification framework in disability and para-sport, men and women are allowed to play side by side, or able to play side by side in our sport. That's because basically we are given a points value according to the severity of our disabilities, and we can fit both genders into that framework. So we're very proud of that fact, and it's actually, you know, informed me quite a lot on team dynamics, having had female members in all of the Paralympics that I participated in. So I'm very, very pleased to have had that. So that was wheelchair rugby, once called Murderball. Again, another story for another time. Hands up if you like the look of it. Hands up if you hated the look of it. Okay, absolutely. And you know, that's okay because we're all different and difference is good. It obviously didn't start out like that for me. I started out playing sport because I fell in love with it. I take you back to your passions, okay? You really want to be trying to align your passions with your career. Okay, I know it's not always going to work out like that, but how are we going to motivate ourselves to give over such a large amount of time to this thing that is our profession if we don't love it? And I fell in love with this sport. I started playing just to get myself physically fitter, you know, wandering around with 20% of the function that you have as able-bodied people. You know, things were going to be difficult. In order for me to maintain my independence, I needed to make sure that my body worked as well as possible. I obviously also needed to make sure that I found a community, you know, that I healed myself emotionally as well as physically, because it was a massive time of upheaval. I wanted to meet people on a similar journey. So that's what I did. I started out once a week, then twice a week, then I started throwing some weights around, and along the way, I took opportunities and I missed opportunities. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about some of the main things I learned in my career. The first thing I learned is that having a positive attitude will always serve you well, and we're entirely in control of our attitudes at any time. In fact, my coach used to say your attitude is like a t-shirt. You can change it as and when. What sets our attitude is perspective, knowing exactly where we are in the world at any point. You know, a really powerful thing for me is to just try and rank yourself. There's 7 billion people around. Where are you? Are you 1 or are you 7 billion? You're not 7 billion because they're gone already. They're already shuffled off the mortal coil. Okay? If you want hard perspective, if you really want it, go to a site called Worldometers. And it will tell you some of the statistics, birth, death rates. And when I checked at about 4 o'clock this evening, as I kind of like to do before talks, just to round this point home a bit, about 20,000 people have died of hunger to date. If we use that as our basis for perspective, everything else is kind of gravy, right? So, attitude and perspective really important, but work ethic is equally as important. It's your hard work that gets you to places, not your talent. That is where my kind of little bugbear in the blurb came from. Who's ever been called talented at something? Come on, I bet you all have. Okay? So, anyone that calls you talented, they mean it as a compliment in the same way as if they call you inspirational. Okay? But if you think about it, it's a little bit backhanded. It implies you're just naturally good at something. Without putting any work in, you're just good at it. So they're not giving you credit for any of the time that you practiced in wheelchair rugby, any of the study you put in to get your HR diploma, any of the time you practiced any other skill, any other aspect of your life. Although it's meant well, it's your hard work and practice that gets you to places. So the main things I learned were have a work ethic, because hard work gets you a long way. It took me 5 years of training to get to my first Olympic Games in Athens. And then for my second game in Beijing, if I can give you one takeaway from that, I learned that hard work gets us a long way, a real long way. But it's easy to be good at stuff and difficult to be great at stuff. So that's when attention to detail comes in. If you can take care of the details, I'm sure that anyone that's listened to any sports person talk has had something like the aggregation of marginal gains rammed down their throat, the idea that small things add up to one big change. But it's true, if we're looking for quick gains, if we're looking for takeaways, what tiny things can we do to differentiate ourselves? And finally, for me, it was about balance. By the time I reached London, it was clear that it was going to be my last games. I realised that I had focused my life on sport. And that was fantastic, and I wanted to do that, and that was a conscious choice. But it's a game. Sport is a very small part of your very, very, very big life. Your career is a much larger part. I was lucky enough to have sport as a career, and I took the decision to unbalance my life to be an athlete. Being an athlete is not necessarily holistically healthy. So those are the real big things that I learned as an individual. You put that together, what does it mean in the context of tonight? What does it mean in the context of teams? So for me, what makes a successful team? Teams are made up of strong individuals with specific expertise from diverse backgrounds. Okay? When I talk about strong individuals, I mean people that have good soft skills. So the ability to communicate effectively, that is vital in an individual and a team environment. The ability to be resilient, once again, I take it back to the fact that we all have a 100% record on our worst ever day, so we have that. And also, do you know what? I just think life skills are so important. We can train for anything, and I'll come on to training in a moment, but what we learn in life is something that's absolutely vital. Far easier for you to join an organisation, them to train you, or you to go to an education establishment, them to train you in finance, in IT, and HR. But it's really hard to pick up things like communication skills without good life experience, and that's why it's such a scandal that the public education system or the state education system is losing pastoral education resources, because that is really a differentiator for me. So the second part of that, strong individuals with a specific expertise. The first criteria to even get in the door of a team is to justify your place. You will do that because you have certain qualifications in certain areas, okay? Without that, you're not going to be able to function in the team. You're not bringing anything to the team. These are real entry-level things, because I think most of us labour under the misapprehension that we're in many teams, and a lot of us are in groups. Tonight we're not a team, we're a group. There's nothing wrong with being a group, but it will take some work for us to get to the stage of being a team. So the third thing is the diversity that I've become more and more interested with. Quite simply, in any team, the team with the breadth of experience, with the more reference points to go to, is going to be the most successful team. So we need people from all different backgrounds, from all different ethnicities, of all different abilities, across the gender spectrum. We need teams across the generational spectrum to really understand the kind of world we're living in today. You know, we're preparing our young people for jobs where we don't even know the job title, the role yet. Social media didn't exist 10 years ago, barely existed 10 years ago. How many people work in social media? It's massive. So having a diverse team, a diverse background is massively important, and being able to lever those skills, because those are the things that you will struggle to learn quickly. While we can become an expert on, say, disability issues or gender issues, just because I use a wheelchair doesn't mean that I know that much about it. I've studied more and more about it since I retired from sport. Before that, I'm in the inspiration business, nothing more. So it's a real thing to think about. My very final point, because I know we're moving real quickly, that I can give you to take away is to embrace failure. And this is maybe where the training comes in. I'll tell you a little thing about this photo. This is the moment, or about 30 seconds prior to it, this is the closest I ever came to winning a medal at Paralympic Games. I have won 3 gold medals. They were at European Championships, not on the Paralympic Games, not on the very top table. This is the moment in the semi-final where our dream of getting a bronze medal started to drift further and further away. The biggest failure of my career, the worst moment of my career. Has anyone ever cried in public? I did. 10,000 people that night, whoever was watching on TV. So the support staff, they come and threw a towel over my head. It was quite interesting. The point is, until we know our point of failure, how do we really know we're pushing ourselves quite hard enough? My caveat to this is I'm not going to ask you to embrace failure if you're a first responder or in anything where there is a very big consequence for that, namely, you know, a violation of human rights or people's survival. But we need to train and practice and fail so we can learn from it. I'm not a massive one for quotes, so I'll be inspecific about this. The guy, do we remember the guy that landed the 737 on the Hudson a few years ago? Very famously, he said when he was told about this massive success, is that was built on the failure, or he got even more specific, that was built on the blood and lives of everyone that has gone before. The fact that we learned from so many plane crashes how to be better at it. So if you take nothing else away from this speech tonight, take the fact that losing is just a learning curve, it's just a learning exercise. I've won loads in my life, I've lost way more, and you're never going to meet anyone successful who hasn't messed up again and again and again and again. If we can demystify failure, if we can take the stigma away from it, then that's when we begin to grow really, really quickly. Thank you very much for listening this evening.